Welcome back to the Monocle, where we keep an eye on Dynasty football. On tonight's episode, we're going to be going over NFL free agents and whether we are buying or selling them in their potential new landing spots, or even if they stay where they are now. We're going to be going through. I have some buys, sells, and holds, and obviously my co-host Nubs has some as well. What's up, buddy?
Not too much. Finally start. It's still cold, but it's getting a little bit warmer, so you can at least walk around outside for more than 5 minutes and not hate your life. But we're finally through the Super Bowl, so we're getting to to rookie drafts, as well as some leagues that I'm in. We have fun ways to determine our rookie pick order for some dynasty teams that we go into a lottery with. So some of those are based off of the Daytona 500. So I'm looking forward to this weekend.
Nice. That's fun. I actually haven't been doing too much in NASCAR, looking at any of that. Like, I didn't really pay too much attention last year, even though my favorite driver ended up winning it. So I probably should have paid a little bit of attention, but it was just a weird year for it. But that's actually a really cool way to set up some rookie drafts and stuff like that. I don't know if I'd want my 101 being based off of NASCAR, but you never know. But like you said, you had talked about the Super Bowl. Obviously, we did it. We made it through the entire season. The Super Bowl's done. What did you think of the game? What did you think of just everything that went along with it?
I didn't think that the defense for Tampa would have such an impact on Mahomes, but it did. And it was a great game to watch. And I was happy for Mike Evans. Having no rooting interest in the game made it really fun to just kind of pick apart what you got to see in the game. So obviously Evans didn't have a big game, but you just kind of got to see what the greatest successes were. It was nice to see Fournette actually have a good game. Obviously he has had games throughout the playoffs, which could speak volumes to next year's performances. So,
and we might be talking about him here in a little bit. but yeah, I actually, as somebody that lives in Tampa, it just kind of had throwbacks to the Bucs defense in 2002 when they won the last Super Bowl. And it's really crazy because that was one of the best defenses I've ever seen in my entire life, the 2002 Bucs. And this one, at least during the playoffs, played very similarly. And I'm not saying that they were that good, because that was a pretty damn good team. But man, did they play well? They showed up. Really, the whole team. I was, like you said, it was unbelievable. Would have never guessed that they wouldn't score a touchdown against the Bucs. Who could have guessed that? But we did it. We made it into the off season. We're going to be trying to work our way into rookies and rookie draft season, all that kind of stuff. But we don't want to forget about everything else that goes along with the free agents and all that. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'll go ahead and get us started with my first one, and it's actually going to be my first buy, and it's going to be Allen Robinson. And this one seems pretty easy. I don't think there's too many people out there that would consider him a sell. So it's just, can A-Rob's situation get any worse than what it's been? I mean, he's basically been in some of the worst situations in the NFL throughout his career. And so if he stays, he's in the same situation. If he leaves, what are the odds that he actually goes to a worse situation? It just doesn't seem very likely. Even in the situation that he was in with Nick Foles throwing on the ball for half the year and then Trubisky being Trubisky the rest of the time, A-Rob still finished as 13th in points per game, and he had the 11th highest target share. So, I mean, the man earns targets. The man just gets the job done. Maybe he's never going to be the dynasty wide receiver one or the wide receiver one in a season. But, I don't think that it's because of talent reasons. I think it's more about what's around him and that kind of thing. So I definitely would be buying him, and his price right now is 15th, wide receiver 15 in January ADP. Obviously, February ADP is going to be coming out pretty soon, but it's not out quite yet. So wide receiver 15 prices, I'm definitely all about that. I might actually pay a little bit higher than that, just depending on how you feel about some of these guys, but I definitely don't mind that price at all. What do you think?
A big thing about this to pay attention to is he has control about his future. So when you're saying about him going to a different destination, I don't think he's going to pick a destination that is detrimental to him being able to succeed as a wide receiver. So that should give you a lot of faith in his future performances, as well as that his price should remain constant. And you should, even if you wanted to later after acquiring him, get out of him, you should be able to do that with almost no issue.
Yeah, and it's not an age thing. I mean, the guy's 27 years old, so he's right in his prime. He's been around for ever, it feels like. So it doesn't feel right, but he's only 27 years old. Like you said, when he came to the Bears, he kind of had to do like a prove it deal. Now he got paid quite a bit, obviously, to go to Chicago, but he was coming off the ACL tear. He had a down year before that, and he basically had to do a prove it deal, and then he proved it. And so now, like you said, he's completely healthy. He's proven that he's a stud, and all he has to do is just go up to a team and be like, "Here's my resume. Pay me a bunch of money and get me on a better team," and they're gonna do it.
Absolutely.
Which actually kind of leads us to our next guy, and that is Mitchell Trubisky. And now we obviously don't know if they're actually going to let him walk or what. Even though if you listen to Twitter or what's going on Twitter, then you would assume so because everyone thinks that Carson Wentz is going there. But you don't see too many trades that like you start hearing rumblings and then like a week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, and then it actually happens. It's usually like you hear rumblings and like the next day it happens. So I feel like every day that passes, that trade, at least the trade that was discussed, is like less likely to happen, as each passing day. But if obviously if Trubisky stays, we've already seen that he can put up at the very least QB2 numbers. He actually, I think this year he only played 10 games, but he actually had 4 top 10 QB performances in those 10 games. So I'm not ever saying that Mitchell Trubisky is like a great quarterback or anything like that, but he is a somewhat viable quarterback. And if you have him as like your quarterback 3, you can actually, start him certain weeks during certain matchups and be perfectly fine with it. His QB price right now is QB 29. And obviously with all the talks of the Wentz trade and them cutting him and all that kind of stuff, I actually could see that going down a little bit. And so for those prices, I'd definitely be checking with people and just trying to get him thrown into a deal or something like that, because either A, he's going to still be on the Bears, or B, they're going to cut him, trade him, whatever, and he's probably going to end up somewhere where at the very least he can compete with somebody. He might not be guaranteed a starting position or anything like that, but I do think he's good enough to be a starter in the NFL. Whether that's a long-term thing or whatever, I don't know. I don't think he's just that terrible to where he can't get on a field,
I feel like that this type of deal would be definitely one if you're, let's say you come into the deal wanting to target Trubisky, it's the wrong approach. But wanting to target him as a throw-in is the right approach, because you'll get his value as deflated as possible, because you can soft open the owner, find out more or less about a different player, gauge more or less about how they feel about Trubisky at the same time, and even through discussions, maybe even continue to lower his price or his value in that deal. Now, I'm not a big Trubisky guy. I don't know about his future staying power, but then again, even on Terrestrial Takes, I talked about how I'm not really the biggest Goff fan, but you need quarterbacks, and I don't really see one that offers the potential to start and score points if that team can somehow continue to do what it did in the later half of the year, where it kind of caught some momentum. You're not going to find that for Trubisky prices on other quarterbacks. So I'm definitely for it, as well as there may even be a potential value spike if he's moved or goes to a different team that either gives him the better opportunity or it's even just a better offense overall, where if he gets on the field, he could put up better numbers, and someone might be very interested in that later in the season, where then you're able to move them.
Yeah, and actually that was a great point, and I guess I was trying to say it, but it probably just didn't come out right. But basically, like, I'm not saying to go target Trubisky, but like you said, just get him thrown into a deal, because he's at that kind of value, he's at that kind of level where you can get him thrown into a deal. But once again, you're not going to be overly excited about it, but sometimes you only have two quarterbacks and it's a super flex league, and you're like, man, if I would feel a little more comfortable if I had that third body. And maybe he's not guaranteed to start, but you know what? People didn't think he was going to start last year. Look what happened. People thought Foles came in and completely took his job and all that kind of stuff, and yet Trubisky was right there at the end of the season, the starter once again. So at QB 29 prices, and probably even cheaper than that here pretty soon, I would, especially once the rookies start coming in and all that kind of stuff, I would definitely kick the tires and see what you can do with that.
I'm definitely a supporter of just having a nice stock of quarterbacks on your bench that may not even be starters at this point, but they present some of the biggest value increases that you can get for very cheap prices of acquiring them, either through waivers or using fab or even throw-ins on trades, comparatively to almost any other position.
Yeah, backups with upside is always a good idea. I mean, look what people bought Mariota last year for very cheap because he was a backup. He was going to a new team. He had lost his job to Tannehill and all that kind of stuff. And obviously he's not guaranteed anything this year, but we've seen a value increase at the very least. And there's at least rumblings of him being a starter here, being traded here, like that kind of thing. So it definitely does not hurt to have those backups with upside. You don't want the backups that have, like a Chase Daniel or something like that. Like, yeah, they might start a game, but it doesn't freaking matter. You want the guys that are actually going to start, take over a job, and actually score you points,
Mm-hmm.
But that brings us to our next player, and that is Kenny G. And honestly, he just kind of feels like a forgotten man right now. I mean, there's so much going on with the Lions. Obviously, a lot of changes. But, he missed most of the season. But he was very valuable before the or going into the year. I actually had him as a sell last year. I put out a pod on him talking about how he was just ranked too highly. He was going as the wide receiver 12 at the time, and that just seemed way too high for what he had done and everything going on with that team. And obviously, like I can't toot my own horn or like take a victory lap or anything because we have no idea what he would have been last year, but. Just looking at what he had done the previous season, it seemed like he was going to have touchdown regression at the very least, and there was definitely going to be some things. He was going to have to get a lot more targets. He didn't have like an extremely high target share in order to jump above that, get to that wide receiver 12 price. But now he's sitting at wide receiver 25. And obviously, like, a lot can change, and probably a lot will change. A lot already has, even if he stays with the Lions. Obviously a lot's already changed. But at that wide receiver 25 price, I think we have seen enough to say, it's worth like at least getting like one or two shares of them. Maybe you don't go out and get a share in every single league or anything like that, but you want to have him at that price and just hope for the best. Now I do get that he's going to be 28 when the season starts. And people are going to start getting, a little freaked out about the age, but that's never been me. I'm not going to lose my mind about a wide receiver being 28. So it's nothing. As long as the NFL is showing us that they value him, whether it's the Lions giving him a contract or another team giving him a contract or the Lions franchising him, then as far as I'm concerned, give me Kenny G at wide receiver 25.
One of the benefits to Kenny G is that with this wide receiver crop this year that are free agents, there are very few that move the needle. Kenny G being one of them. When he gets a deal done, no matter if it's with the Lions or somewhere else, you're going to have a value spike no matter what. There's going to be someone that's interested in either the target share or the intrigue of the new offense, things of that nature. So that's what he definitely has that going for him. Now, just based on the ADP that we're discussing, ADP wide receiver 27, Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd's already 26. Tyler Boyd's not a spring chicken. I would much rather have the upside of Kenny G versus the consistency or thought of as consistent wide receiver that Tyler Boyd is for fantasy, because I feel like Kenny G gives you a much better opportunity to win weeks and move along in your playoffs. Who knows where he goes, but maybe it's a much better place where he's scoring a lot more touchdowns and not taking just so many jump balls all the time. where they're able to use other parts of his skill set or even just a more improved offense. He's seeing more one-on-one coverages where he's not having to fight through a couple defenders before getting to the second level.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where I feel like if he stays, where he is, you had already said that you're not a big fan of Goff, but I honestly, I mean, everything's kind of changing with the head coach and everything else in Detroit, but I actually feel like Goff can, produce a decent offense with as bad of a defense as they have. They're going to have to be throwing. And it's not like Goff doesn't have the arm or anything like that to get the ball to Kenny G. So if he stays, I actually think he'll be fine. Maybe he doesn't quite have the upside that he would have had with Stafford, but we also saw that Stafford couldn't stay healthy. So you can't even necessarily say that it's that much worse than what it would have been. So but obviously, like you said, he could very easily go to one of these nice places. Hell, he could even end up in Cincinnati. He could kind of take Tyler Boyd's spot from him, like you're talking about. So there's a lot going on, but once again, it kind of feels like with Kenny G's talent and his price that I'm willing to take the chance and just I guess hope that he doesn't end up somewhere terrible. But if they're paying him, even if it is terrible, like they're going to use him. He's going to be on the field.
But what really gets worse than the last couple of years with Detroit, and he already proved that he can perform there and put up fantasy numbers that make sense or they're valuable enough to actually play him in fantasy. So I don't really see there being too many areas where he goes and you lose faith in his ability to perform. And I really do believe the second he signs a deal, his value will already increase.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, even if you aren't 100% sold by what we just said, once he actually does sign a contract, he will get a value spike, and then you could probably sell him for wide receiver 20 or wide receiver 21 or something like that at that point. And at the very least, you got a little bit of a value spike, a little bit of an increase, and maybe you can get like an extra second or third or something like that thrown in. But that's going to bring us to our next player, and it's another one that I kind of put out as a dynasty sell last year, and it was because he was going way too high. And it's Juju. He was going as dynasty wide receiver 7 in startups last year, and I didn't really see why. It didn't really make any sense. And this is one where we did see a season. He had some injuries and things, but we actually did see the season come to fruition, and he ended up as wide receiver 24, something right around there. There obviously are some extenuating circumstances and things, so I'm not saying that's necessarily like exactly where he should have ended up, but obviously the wide receiver 7 price was way too much, but now he's actually sitting at wide receiver 24 in dynasty startups. So I don't see too many situations where he doesn't get a better situation. He's only 24 years old. And we saw what happened this season. Yeah, they threw the ball a ton in Pittsburgh, but they're all short, crappy, not good targets, not quality targets. And so even if the actual target numbers come down, if anything, you might see the actual target share go up, but you should at the very least see target efficiency go up. And getting more yardage, getting more touchdowns, getting more of just about everything. And you would assume, once again, if he's going to get a nice contract at 24 years old, that a team is going to be using the hell out of him. And, at that wide receiver 24 price at his age, it just seems like it almost just seems too easy. When you're talking about wide receiver 7 last year and wide receiver 24 this year, it just seems like, okay, yeah, you go buy that guy.
I'm with you. This is definitely a time to buy him at a discount. There's been rumblings he wants to go head west, basically go home to places like LA. I don't know if the Chargers have any interest in him or if I'm not sure how far away from LA he considers like Las Vegas or something of that nature, just throwing out different options if he's trying to head west. But if let's say he does end up going west, and there's been also rumblings about the Chargers kind of reining the passing game in and throwing shorter passes, this could be something that could work very well in Juju's favor and complement Keenan Allen at the same time. Juju being 24 is just amazing. We can't look past the fact that I don't even think he's really reached, besides the actual like dominant season he had when he was really young. I don't think he's reached his production peak in terms of age. So I think that there's so much more time for him to grow and his value to recover, that no matter what, you're getting an asset that you'll be able to move in the future if you need to.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's really weird because I really just don't have a lot of like analysis or reasons why I want to buy Juju. Like, if you look at the numbers, they haven't been spectacular since that, what, first and second year, but it's just like, he has the talent, that he can do it, and he is so young that if this was if this was just about any other receiver at this age, like, people would still be all in on him. They'd still be buying him at like wide receiver 15 prices or wide receiver 12 prices, even like that kind of thing. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, I don't really have the analysis on this one. It's just like a gut feeling, I guess, that I feel like he's going to end up in a better situation, and so I'm buying for that reason.
Well, it's a quick player comparison because they share the same age. Juju and Chris Godwin, they're both impending free agents. Now, I feel like the community's split on that, if Godwin stays or not. But if we kind of look at those two players, perceptively, they're kind of the same based on how they both failed to reach their preseason ADP and rank. But we definitely look at them differently. And if we really take into account how Big Ben had to play last year and how they ran that offense, and he ends up leaving, I feel like there's a large part of the community that's not looking at that part, and kind of it's blinding their judgment in a way that it shouldn't, because it's no longer a factor that's going to contribute to his future potential and his future output if he leaves.
Yeah, that's actually a great point because, like you said, I've Godwin in my sells category, and they're the same age, similar hype as far as like their sophomore years and stuff like that, but yet right now we have Godwin, who finished the season at 15th in points per game compared to Juju's 24th, so obviously a little bit better, but he had the 46th target rate in 2020 for Godwin, and he finished at second and 25th in those categories in 2019. So obviously we saw a substantial drop from the 2019 to the 2020 seasons. Same age as Juju, but yet Godwin's going as the 11th wide receiver in January ADP, and Juju's going as the wide receiver 24. Now, I feel like Juju is probably almost guaranteed to be out of Pittsburgh, whereas, like you said, a lot of people do kind of feel like Godwin stays in Tampa. It's definitely not a guarantee either way, but I think they want to try to keep as many of those pieces as they can from the Super Bowl team, so it would obviously make a lot of sense. So, obviously, I'm expecting that that's a reason or a part of that wide receiver 11 price, but it still seems like a pretty big gap or valley or whatever in between the two prices.
And we're not even talking about, let's say Godwin leaves Tampa, right? Most likely his situation is not going to be as good. His target number may go up, but the quality of targets may go down. Where Juju's leaving a situation that wasn't as cohesive of an environment for him to be a top 12 wide receiver, and going to one that is more likely to be good for him and his development. I don't see the huge gap, or why there is a gap there, because the situations could literally flip. And then we're talking about what valuation on these two players,
Yep. No, I agree. And like I said, I did have Godwin as a sell. I don't think he's like insanely overpriced or anything like that. I just feel like he should be a little bit closer to like maybe like the 15 or 16 range or something like that, and kind of on the other end that Juju should be the same, just a little bit closer to that range, and then I'd feel a little bit more comfortable at that point. The next player that we have is actually pretty funny to me because when I looked at the list, I have never been on this player. I've never been a fan. I've never had him on a single Dynasty team. And yet, I feel like this player is a buy. and it just, like I said, just kind of made me laugh. It's Will Fuller. I I have always been all out on him. His price was way too high, during his rookie draft, rookie season, and then he had the injuries, and then he had the injuries, and then he had the injuries, and then he finally stays healthy this year, and then of course he gets the suspension and the PEDs and all that kind of stuff. I I even assumed when I looked like through the ADP that I was going to be all out on whatever his price is, and then I looked and saw that he's at wide receiver 39. And I feel like at wide receiver 39, why not just take the chance? Because yeah, he was on PEDs, but he did stay healthy. Like he got suspended. He didn't get hurt again. And so, just what if it wasn't the PEDs? Like I'm assuming it is, but what if it's not? What if he just finally started taking care of his body a little bit better? What if it, started eating differently? Or whatever, or maybe even the PEDs, fixed everything. Who knows? But regardless, I think at that wide receiver 39 price, it's definitely worth it. And especially, he was the wide receiver 7 in points per game before he went out for suspension this season. So that just shows you the upside. I don't think anyone questions the upside. Now, the second question there is, where will he be? Because I think we can almost guarantee he will not be in Houston. There's just no reason for them to keep him, no reason for them to pay him or anything like that. So we're going to assume he's going to go somewhere else. And being that he's suspended and the injury history, he's probably going to have to sign a prove it deal, maybe a 1-year deal, maybe a 2 or whatever. But that's just going to give him that incentive to work and try even harder. Hopefully it won't mean more PEDs, but I just once again, going back to the price, it just seems like it's definitely worth a dart throw. It might be another one where you kind of get him, if you're trading for him, you try to get him thrown in and not just go after him, because then people are going to be like, no, I'll just hold on to him.
I actually, I had, when I had made my list, I put it in 4 different groups, and I would put him in the group of test the waters. And I mean this in a way of just valuation. The 39 wide receiver 39 ADP, I agree with. I think it's a great opportunity to add a big time high upside player onto your roster, into your flex, who could perform at a much higher level. But let's say you have him, I might even be testing the waters to see what I can get for him. Earlier in this offseason, in the Superflex tight end premium league, I was able to move him for 2 mid-seconds, and I was very happy about that. Coming from I had picked up an orphan team, and it had no picks. So I need potential large growth upside on my bench. And I'm hoping to find that in the second round at some point, or at least maybe hit on one and see what I can do in terms of a snowball effect. So I might even look at trading him if his perceived value is still in that top 20 wide receiver range. And even if you can try to find someone to sell him to as that he was top 12 for a majority of the year last year, as well as a lot of his performances were much higher than just top 12. But in a vacuum, just looking at it, just ADP, I agree. Somebody you should definitely be looking out to try to acquire at a very depressed rate at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the next player is actually a player that we've talked about probably way too much, but we're not going to go into a bunch of detail about him or anything. But he does need to be mentioned, especially in this episode, and it's Corey Davis. You guys all knew it was coming. If we were talking about free agency on this show, we were going to be talking about Corey Davis. So once again, we've talked about him enough, but it's the price. He's going as the wide receiver 32 right now, and he's much better than the wide receiver 32 on a low volume team that he very well could stay on. So we already know that he was the wide receiver 24 on that same team. So if he stays on it, then we're going to assume he's going to be right around there again. Or if he goes to a better team, or a team that, a higher volume team, then he could very well, and he probably will be even higher than that. So why is he at wide receiver 32? Just doesn't make any sense.
Free the CD.
I mean, trust me, at this point, I would love to see him go somewhere. I know we kind of mentioned on other pods. Actually, I think you asked me, so I'm going to ask you now. Where do you think he will end up, or where would you like him to end up?
I have a friend that's a Titans fan who has unsubstantiated rumors, which I don't really like to buy into too much, but he's heard some rumblings of Corey Davis to the Packers. That would be awesome if the price is right and if the deal is right. I would be for it all day long because I feel like Corey Davis can be a discount version of Godwin in a lot of situations, and I don't see that as a bad thing, and I don't see that as a knock. Um, I think I was actually thinking about this earlier when I was looking at some other wide receivers. I think this market's going to be kind of depressed when it comes to wide receivers because of last year's draft and because of the incoming wide receivers and because of the teams that aren't competing. I think the market isn't as deep in terms of number of teams that are willing to pay right now versus maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if he even tests and then comes back to Tennessee because I feel like he has a good relationship there with Vrabel. I don't know if there's any ill um, doings there with any of those guys or anything like that. And I think he likes playing with AJ Brown, so there could be some sort of um, situation where he comes back. But I don't have like 100 great fits for him. Like, yeah, I want him to get an increased target share, but do I want him to get it on the Jets? Maybe. I don't know if they move on from Darnold. I wouldn't even mind them taking Fields because I feel like he gives them a new look, and that could help Davis as well. But I'm kind of lost as to where exactly I want to put him in because I don't know what type of contract he gets yet.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's so many free agents. We're talking about them right now that, like you said, the market could actually be a little depressed. It might not be as good, if he was a free agent last year, next year, whenever. But kind of like what you were saying, I feel like whether he stays or leaves, it's kind of like he's going to be in a good situation. We already know that the whole Titans offense just kind of works the way it is. With Henry doing his thing, Tannehill playing off the play action, Brown doing his thing, and then, CD being on the other side. It just kind of works. So even though it is that low volume, it's not necessarily a bad thing if he stays. Whereas, he can go somewhere else and he can get the higher volume. And, but maybe the efficiency comes down a little bit, from the quarterback, regardless, depending on who it is. So, but either way, I kind of feel like it's like a win-win. It can't be a lower volume thing. But see, you can tell that we love CD because we said we weren't going to touch on him very, very long, and we just spent like 5 minutes talking about him. So.
And I actually wanted to say, too, I don't think there's that many wide receivers that can come in and just do what CD does for the Titans either. I don't think that there's a straightforward replacement for him if he does leave. So there could be changes that the offense may need to make. Like, I actually think Timorian Terry might be a really fun fit here, but who knows if that's even someone they target if they bring him back. So.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Actually, Terry just moved up my ranks, so that's somebody that I'm going to be probably pretty excited about. But I guess there's a lot to change before that. But the next one for me is mostly because of the playoffs. Obviously I've always been a fan, but most people were pretty much out on this player until the playoffs, and it's playoff Leonard Fournette. I think because of the playoffs and the Super Bowl and everything, his price is only going to go up. His ADP is only going to go up because in January ADP he's going as running back 30. I don't think in February, March his ADP is going to be anywhere close to that. I mean, maybe he's not going to jump 20 spots or anything like that, but I'd say 5 spots at the very least he'll jump up, almost be a running back 2 as far as dynasty value. But there is some questions there, obviously concerns. Is he going to be back with Tampa? Is he going to go to another team? Will he get another contract? So there is a little bit up in the air there where we can possibly take advantage of of a value dip. But I think we've seen, because of the playoffs, once he got healthy from that ankle issue, that he still has it. Like, he's still a good player. And, I mean, if anything, he kind of put some Rojo truthers, like, kind of put them to bed, like, shut them up, because it wasn't looking great there in the middle of the season. And then at the end, they were like, hey, go ahead and just take a seat, Rojo. Playoff Lenny's going to take it from here.
So wait, you're saying that when Rojo doesn't find huge open lanes, he's not effective? No way.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird.
Wow. I'm with you. He actually was listed in my test the waters uh, area because depending on your risk appetite, I could see it as a situation where someone goes, "Oh, hey, I really just want to find an asset that's got, 1 or 2 years for sure, in terms of either contract or role or whatever, that you can make a trade on because if he ends up not getting re-signed, which I 100% think he's getting re-signed, I just do. I think he proves to be worthwhile in that offense, and they meld very well together. So I just see that as something that's a match made for both of them, especially if they want to win. He doesn't turn the ball over. Brady likes that. So all of these things I think is beneficial or are beneficial. But there may be other people in your league that have him even lower than or running back 30. There could be opportunities where he might be in someone's ranking of 40. I would have acquired more of him, but in the leagues we're in together, either you have him or I have him. And I think you have him in like all of them, basically. And then the other leagues I'm not in with you, I have him. I actually just traded him and won because I got a pretty good deal on a rebuild. But yeah, I'm with you. I want him on my roster because I truly believe he's coming back to a role in Tampa and a successful role that he will only prove as to why he was good in Jacksonville with no one else around him.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, he just won his first Super Bowl. Obviously, he's pretty excited about that, and it's I guess it's narrative street, but maybe he'll take a lesser contract to stay in Tampa and possibly win another one than going to some unknown place, having no idea what's going on, and making more money. He's already made good money. Now, I don't know the player, I don't know the man, so maybe he just wants money. I have no idea, but I could definitely see that happening. But like you said, it also seems like a good fit. It's not just a money thing. It's not just a Super Bowl thing. It actually seems to be a good fit for them and a good fit for him. And once again, I think between myself, you, and MG Jaden, I think we might actually have every share of Leonard Fournette in Dynasty.
Guess who I traded my share of Fournette away to? Jaden.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. So I have two more quick ones for buys, and then we'll get on to the sells. And I don't want to go like too long on these, but it's just the first one's Marvin Jones. Uh, Now age is going to be the factor here because he's actually going to be 31 when the season starts. That is definitely when people are going to start freaking out, and I even start getting a little concerned myself. But I also like to watch the player and see were they injured, were they healthy at the end of the year. And he was almost 31 years old, and he was actually healthy this year. He'd had some kind of like, I guess, flukier injuries in the previous seasons, but he ended 2 years in a row with injuries that kind of took him out of games. And this year he didn't have that. Now he did have an extremely slow start. I don't know what that was. I really don't, because I mean I felt like he was just done, about 4 or 5 weeks into the season, and then next thing you know, he just kind of blows up. Obviously, Kenny G going out was probably a big factor there, but Marvin Jones is going as wide receiver 67 right now. And now he's always been undervalued, and I get the whole age concern and everything, but wide receiver 67. And I just think for a competing team only, obviously, that's just the easiest thing to go get, especially if somehow he's on a rebuilding team, and you go send what, a third or something. I mean, maybe 2/4, and go get that player. And it's somebody that you're at least going to be able to throw in there. And we know how he does those boom weeks. Like, he's the kind of player that can actually win you a week, which is insane to say from wide receiver 67. Like, he can actually go get you 30, 40 points and win you a week. So he's definitely somebody I'd be looking to acquire, like, once again, if I'm competing.
Yeah. Robert Woods at a discount is kind of nice. Just kidding. But he is basically the arbitrage Robert Woods. And he's now playing with Goff, potentially. If he likes Detroit, I don't see any reason why he would leave, unless he just wants a better opportunity to win more games, which he may end up saying, I want to try to do it here in Detroit. If not, he's going to go to a place that's most likely going to have a role for him. Otherwise, why would he leave? Unless he just wants to get paid. But Detroit may end up being the place that pays him too. So yeah, I was 67. You're looking for upside. Like I had other players I was looking at that weren't free agents that above him, I would take him over. So yeah, for sure. There's his value is probably not going to change too much because he's just going to be always undervalued, as John had said. But it's definitely someone that you can do worse having a different player on your roster versus him at the cost.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to be. I do have him in a few leagues, but I feel like at this point I'm probably going to go try to get him for like a third or something like that because I want more Marvin Jones. I mean, maybe I'll wait, but maybe I can try some force right now before he has a new contract and all that kind of stuff. And I missed the comment earlier, but Levi said Lenny forever. I didn't realize he was in the club. You know, they have the whole Cole Kmet club on Twitter. We might have to start a playoff Lenny club or something like that. You know. And then my last buy is is another old player, very old, but it's Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's going as quarterback 42 right now. Now, mind you, there's 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, at least at any given time. He's going as the quarterback 42. Now, he's pretty old. I want to say he's 38. I could be wrong. I don't remember exactly, but he's fairly old. But I mean, what has his play shown us except for maybe he's actually getting better with age? It seems like he just doesn't care, at least for fantasy purposes. He just doesn't care anymore, and he just throws the ball, but he actually throws it pretty well, and he makes offenses exciting, and he scores a lot of fantasy points. I could easily see him signing with another team, regardless of who it is, and being at the very least a bridge quarterback for the first 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever. At quarterback 42 prices, I don't care if you get me 4 startable games, it's worth that price. You know, like 6 startable games, it's worth that price. If somehow he starts an entire year at quarterback 42 prices, I want that player on my team. So it's 100% worth it. Just go try to acquire Fitzpatrick. I have him in a couple spots. I'm actually pretty excited to have him as my quarterback 4 in those spots. But once again, I'm probably going to be sending out some offers before this hits tomorrow morning.
Snitches Get Witches was able to add Ryan Fitzpatrick in the Harry Potter League for $2, and he's pretty happy about it. That's me.
$2. $2 out of 500.
It's such a free square because you're not gonna remember those $2, and or at least I'm not. And the upside is so large because who knows what happens with the QB situation or injuries or whatnot, that a guy that actually will put the ball in the air and find success doing it for basically free. Go get him. I had one other buy too. I'm not sure if you have any more to add about Fitzpatrick.
No, I was just going to say, I feel like with Fitzpatrick, there's really not like a bad spot he can end up with just because of his mentality and everything. So we don't even need to sit here and discuss like who's he going to go to or anything like that. I think the only bad thing that could happen is if somehow he re-signs in Miami. And Tua is still the quarterback. That would probably be the worst case scenario. But at the very least, then maybe you go acquire Tua and you have that quarterback stack or whatever. But even if he does, and it's that's worst case scenario. Once again, at the price, I'm still all in.
Or you hold and you see if Tua has any struggles. I'm not saying they're going to replace him again with Tua or replace Tua again with Fitzpatrick, but who knows? Who knows what that looks like? Maybe Tua ends up getting hurt or whatever. And the upside's even just that much greater because he's playing. So yeah, based on the fact that it costs you nothing, there's no real downside to having him on your roster, especially if you have deep rosters. My last one I had was James White. He is a free agent, and I have a feeling he's going to replace LaShawn McCoy in that running back room, and he's going to have all of that experience playing with Brady. Not saying he's going to be the most upper echelon running back on your roster, but if he ends up carving out a role that's consistent, gets receptions, maybe 6 receptions for 60 yards on a basis and a touchdown every 3 weeks, you're not going to be upset with that on your roster, nor are you going to be upset moving him for a pick or whatever in the future if someone ends up really needing a running back, because we all know how that goes during the season, and someone that gets at least consistent volume is going to be someone that has some sort of value.
Yeah, I can see it. Now, the only thing is, isn't White, 28, 29 years old?
He's 28, yeah.
Yeah. So, you almost wonder if teams are going to be willing to actually invest in him. Because I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I don't see him staying with the Patriots.
No, I think
And
he goes to Tampa.
oh, really?
Yeah, I think he 100% goes to Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, that would, I guess that'd probably be hurt Fournette if that's the case, because he's obviously a large part of what Fournette has done in the playoffs has been because of the passing game and all that. And obviously he still has the goal line work, he still has the touchdown, so it's not going to kill Fournette. But I don't know if I'd be happy with that as a Fournette owner, but I guess they do probably want that passing back, and obviously you have the connection there with Brady, and all, I don't think it would be that difficult for him to make the call and be like, "Hey James, come on down, buddy. It's a lot warmer here. It was 82 degrees today."
I think it was 4.
So I could see it. It was 4. Oh man,
I think it was 4.
I didn't even know they did single digits. Like temperatures do that.
Hey, talk to our boys in Minnesota. They're getting negative temperatures.
I know, I know. MG was saying what, -40. Aaron was saying -40. Somebody.
Yeah, with the wind chill.
Oh my god, that's insane. All right, so that's gonna bring us to our cells, and this probably won't take as long, even though, well, I won't say that because whenever I do, we end up talking for like an hour and a half. But I don't have as many on the cells side, but I'm gonna start with one that's probably a little controversial, and it is Dak Prescott. I really don't see Dak going anywhere. So, I don't think anything's like truly changing. But I feel like everyone is all excited about, Dak, look what happened when Dak left, and like the team just completely fell apart. But they're not actually paying attention to what else happened, and the offensive linemen that got hurt, the defensive players that got hurt, the running backs that got hurt, the wide receivers that got hurt. Like there a lot went down, a lot happened, and so you can't necessarily blame or say the changes were just because of Dak. Now, Dak is obviously a better quarterback than Andy Dalton. He is 1,000 times better than Ben DiNucci and Garrett Gilbert or whatever the hell his name was. So, it's I'm not making that argument. He is a better quarterback, but I feel like people are looking at those first 4 games and they're like, that's what it's gonna be. And if it's like 20% of that, or 80% of that, I'm sorry, then they're not going to be happy at the prices that they're paying for him or that they already paid for him or whatever. If he goes somewhere else, especially, I feel like it can almost only get worse, because when he was there, he did have that O-line. He did have a great supporting cast, and he had a terrible defense, which is going to prop up the offense and make them pass more, which is obviously going to score fantasy points. You can't really get that like trifecta in too many spots. And especially a team that's paying, large money for that quarterback, because they're going to want to compete, and they're not going to do that. Like a Houston's not going to go pay for Dak because they have nothing there. Like there's no freaking point, to it. So it's probably going to be at least a decent team, and all they need is a quarterback to make that push. And then you're not going to have that like trifecta, like I said.
That O-line is bad. That O-line is getting old. It's very weak in terms of staying healthy. That offensive line is something to be concerned about. Now, I agree that there's no way I'm trying to acquire Dak, because I think he's his QB1's probably a ceiling, but QB6 or 7 is probably where he's going to end up, because I agree with you. He's not going to have those massive games every week. Just there's too many contributing factors to that, like the defense getting a little bit better, them playing against NFC East opponents that are having their defenses get developed. The Giants and Redskins already have pretty good pass defenses, and they're probably only going to get better. Eagles, it's been all over the board. We don't know what that team's going to look like, so I don't want to say too much about currently how they're built. But that's just divisional opponents. We don't know what their out of division schedule is going to really look like too great at this point. But we're just looking at all these aspects outside of Dak that are independent of Dak's performance that could impact Dak's performance. We saw the same thing last year with players such as like Cortland Sutton, where there was just so many opportunities for him to not reach the expected ceiling or even just what the upside was, because that's a thing too that we look at when we determine our ADPs or what we think of players are, well, they could score this, but is that the most likely outcome? And I think that's can get lost in the shuffle where we want to romanticize every situation, but it may end up being somewhere in the middle. And if it's somewhere in the middle, we're looking at QB6, QB7, QB8, which is totally fine. But it's probably not the same weekly upside as what he was looking at those first 4 weeks.
Yeah, and I can hear Crescent yelling into his phone as he's listening to this right now, and I know he's saying, but like that consistency, the safety of having him, and like I believe obviously besides the injury, if you take away the injury, I believe he's always been a quarterback one in fantasy. So since he came into the NFL, and so I'm not saying like obviously there's something to that. Like when you just have that consistency, when you have that safety of knowing that you have a top 12 quarterback. No matter what, and obviously assuming health, there definitely is something to that. So I'm not saying like you have to go sell him for nothing, or not sell him for, but like you have to get rid of him. But what I am trying to say is like I feel like you can get quite a haul, and that's including another good quarterback plus. And so I would probably be willing to do that because I definitely could see him being more of that QB7, QB8, whatever. And with that, if you go get QB, say 10, and you get QB 10 and a wide receiver, QB 10 and a running back, or a pick that turns into one of those things, that's what I want. And especially in this upcoming draft where I'm starting to get excited about these players and everything like that, I would definitely be looking to to go ahead and cash in on that and then take advantage of it in the draft.
Depending on the draft pick too, you might even get more because if you're looking at like QB 10, you're most likely looking at a QB that's older or a QB that's less proven. Like, even if you did Burrow for him, there's a lot of people that are mixed on Burrow just based on what they see as his upside, that he doesn't have the strongest arm. So some people are out or have depressed the market on Burrow. Otherwise, you're looking at, a Cousins, a Tannehill, Rodgers. All of these guys are older. So you might even be able to get a larger payout for moving Dak. Now, I'm not sure I'd move him, but I would definitely skirt expectations a little bit and be lowering what I'm hoping to get from him because that way I'm less disappointed. I'm more likely to set a more accurate lineup if I do keep him. But if the cash-in could be pretty good at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more risky you're willing to be, obviously the higher the take back is going to be. And at that point, like, I know most people would not be willing to do this, but I could imagine trading Dak for like a Baker plus and getting like plus, because a lot of people are going to be, a lot of people are out on Baker. They saw what happened in the middle of the year. Obviously, we've all laughed and talked about the win games and all that kind of stuff. So, but I might actually consider that, just obviously depending on what you're getting back. But I feel like you could get something that's really going to substantially help your team back, and then at that point you're fixing, or maybe not fixing, but you're helping two positions rather than just one.
And he hasn't had like a really deep injury history, but him being 27 already, not saying that's old for a quarterback, but if the injuries start to pile up, that could really impact the years in which you think you're going to have him for long term and the levels of performance that you could expect to get. So that's just something to keep an eye on too. You don't want to get to a point where we've, like, obviously everyone loves Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson just came off his best season ever, and he had some seasons before that didn't meet up to preseason expectations multiple years in a row, and his value is kind of held on, but that hasn't really helped you when you've put him in a lineup and he's given you 16 or 17 points 3 weeks in a row.
Yep, exactly. I have some other sells, but I really don't have a lot of notes on them. Just guys that I don't really feel comfortable with their prices, and I've just never really been big fans of them as fantasy players. And it's Hunter Henry, Kenyon Drake, Chris Carson, Jameis Winston, and James Conner. I know you had some notes on, I think, what Drake and Conner, but real quick, I'll start us off with Hunter Henry. It's just, obviously there's the injury concerns. We have no idea where he's going to end up. If he ends up sticking with The Chargers, I actually am probably like less excited than if he actually goes somewhere else. I feel like he might get used a little bit better in a better offense or in a different offense. So I guess there could be a chance that his value kind of like spikes depending on where he ends up. But I've never felt like he's that like top tier guy. And you've made a very big point on our shows in the past. Like if you don't think he's like a Kelsey or a Kittle or an Andrews or whoever, then just go ahead and just sell him at his highest point, and just go ahead and take advantage of that. And so I think if he does go somewhere else, then that would be the time to probably sell because people might be really excited. Hey, they just paid Hunter Henry. It's time to sell. I think he was going as a tight end 11. So that's not exactly like a price that I would be like all out. Like I got to sell him this second or anything like that. But like I said, if he goes somewhere good, he might get that value spike. And then I'd probably be looking to sell.
Tight end 11 also will probably yield some usable pieces back, whether that be some draft picks or even, let's say, a wide receiver that's maybe wide receiver 30, 35, somewhere in there. And that could be useful. I like selling tight ends because I just think that there's so few that will repeat. Now, Henry has, because of his ability to garner targets and make the receptions across the middle. So I think he'll have a role. And that can be something that you can use to advertise or kind of market him to other people in your league as to why he's useful. And I have him on a roster, and if I don't get the value I want for him, I'm just going to keep him because it's a league that offers more points for the tight ends in their production. So he may end up being a better asset in a flex comparatively to like a wide receiver in a later or lower rank, if that makes any sense. But I have no problem moving him for a different asset that could be more marketable to more teams. I do agree with you that the value spike could happen if he moves teams, and but I disagree on the fact that if he were to move teams, it would be a better situation because I can't really think of a situation I like better than being tied to Herbert, and Herbert actually looking for him many times inside in the year, and I actually think that the touchdown rate could go up next year pretty significantly if he stays with LA. But if he doesn't, go snag yourself some Donald Parham.
Yeah, definitely. And real quick, these are Hunter Henry's PPR fantasy finishes since he came to the league: 19th, 14th, 9th, and 12th. So, I mean, obviously the 1 year he finishes 9th, and he only played 12 games. So obviously, for those 12 games, he probably did help you out a little bit better than 9th. But we also know that 9th tight end isn't helping you that much. Like it's not that big of a deal. And so that's what I'm saying. He's kind of right around that tight end 11 price. So if he does get a value spike, that's when I'm selling him because he's probably going to end up as tight end 11. Like I just rather sell him at that price. So
Yeah,
what'd you think of Drake and Connor? I think you had said you had something on them.
Once again, I didn't want to lump everybody into a certain group, but I want to test the waters on both these guys because Connor being running back, I think it was running back 30, and Drake was running back like 27. Or no, Connor was 33, and Drake was. Excuse me just a moment.
I don't have it up or else I would help you. I didn't look that one up. I just knew that I was out.
Drake was 26th and Connor was 33. So I don't hate their price, but I also think that once again, the owners may have them even lower than that. And actually in DLF ranking, they're actually higher than that. Both of them are higher than their ADP. So I'm not sure if we should be following exactly what the rankings are or what the ADPs are. But if they're even lower than that, you're getting even more of a discount to take the risk. Because if Drake comes back to the Cardinals, I think his role is secure. I think it's another year with Kyler, more familiarity. But the thing is, he's already 27. So he shouldn't cost that much if someone's trying to sell him. Now, Connor's actually cheaper, but Connor has his role is in such limbo even if he stays in Pittsburgh. But we know if he gets the volume, he's a top 12 running back. So I think for both, it's find out really what it costs. I'm not paying a premium. I'm probably not even paying market, but I do want to be in on these guys for depth if I can get them at a reasonable price. but most likely they would be sells if I could sell them for market.
Yeah, I guess I have him lumped in as a sell just because I think if they did end up on another team, that they would get a small boost, and then I would sell them. I actually don't have them on any team, so I can't actually sell them. But yeah, I guess I do not feel like Connor's back with the Steelers, and I don't feel like another team gives him like a true shot. Like maybe he's a backup, maybe he's a depth piece for another team, but I really think his days as a starting running back are over. I feel like with Drake, I feel like the only way he's like an actual starting running back is if he stays with the Cardinals. Otherwise, I don't see another team with what he has done, with what he did this season and last year, basically proving that he can't be like a full time workload, full workload kind of back. He can't get it done around the goal line, all that kind of stuff. His numbers were not terrible, but it definitely wasn't anything that you're writing home about. But I just feel like no other team's going to look at him and be like, with that age and everything else going along with it, I'm going to go pay you a nice contract when I can go get myself Leonard Fournette. I can go, get myself, one of these younger players, or obviously there's some decent running backs in the draft as well. So I just don't see Drake being a starter, or at the very least a full-time starter anywhere else. And so his value is only going to go down from here, in my opinion. And so that's why even if it is a depressed value, I'd still probably be looking to sell and just get something in return. Because if he ends up not being a starter anywhere, now you got nothing. Now he just died on your roster,
Oh, I'm totally with you on that. If Drake is out of Arizona, I don't even want to try to mentally jump through those hoops to make an argument as to how he's going to score his points. I agree. Like, he may be better off used as a guy that they keep on the bench, and if the starter gets hurt, he's able to replace the starter's role, such as like Eckler or something like that. But I'm never going to try to project what he's going to do in a game, and I'm not ever going to feel comfortable playing him in a game. That's for sure. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of went into this assuming that he's going to be gone. But, as you started talking about it, I'm like, I guess there is a chance that they could sign him really cheap. The problem is, or I guess the question is he going to take a really cheap contract? Because I don't see them paying him like good money after they just paid him, what, 9 mil, 10 mil, whatever it was. And he didn't quite do what they wanted him to do. So, now they're going to be like, hey, we'll give you the Leonard Fournette contract from this year, 3 mil, 2.5 mil, whatever it is. Like, if you're okay with that, we'll keep you around. I could see it happening, but I guess it'll kind of depend on how he feels about that. Another player from the Bucks that I guess could get paid is Jameis Winston, and I would sell him with the prices and the trades that I've seen in the past week. I would be selling him yesterday. Like, why haven't you sold him? I don't understand why he's still on your team. Go sell him right now. He's going for first-round picks in some leagues. Now, that might be crazy, and you might be like, that'll never happen in my league. That's fine. I would sell him for a second. I understand that he is good for fantasy, but he's not good for NFL teams, and so he's not going to stick around. He might get a shot somewhere, whether it's on the Saints, whether it's on another team, whatever. He might start 6 games, but you're paying, or you're keeping him at a cost, a pretty high cost, when you could be selling him and getting actual assets that are going to help you for the next 3 years, 5 years, whatever. And instead, you're holding on to a player that's going to get you 6, 8 games, maybe a year, and then he's completely worthless again because he's not good at football.
This is a message I want to make sure gets echoed throughout this podcast, because I want this to be the underlying message of myself and most likely John. I haven't talked to John about this, but this happens a lot with quarterbacks as well. Don't get blinded by certain things like, oh, well, for instance, Tom Brady's 43. This might be the worst example ever because he's totally the exception to the rule. But look for the actual useful players in the league, not just players that potentially could do something all the time, such as like a lot of the young quarterbacks that'll flame out. Like, how many useful seasons of Drew Lock did we get? How many useful seasons of Haskins did we get?
Yep.
Pretty much none. And just once again, romanticizing or however you're looking at these players versus the ones that actually produce, this is where you're going to separate your teams from winners and losers. Now, I have Jameis. I would love to sell him for a first round pick. I haven't moved him, but I haven't been actively shopping him. I probably should. But he was going to be my quarterback 4 or 5, and I almost would rather hold for now to move him if he does get that value spike. But I'm with you 100%. Stop looking for the quick fixes and look for the actual substance. And that might be up to you to try to figure out what that is for some sort of overtime continuation where it works tried and true with each player. But the substance is going to really be what wins you your leagues versus trying to find that one that's like the flash and pop that's gone, because then you are left with no depth. You have no assets to move. I'm with you 100%, and I truly believe this is the easiest to recognize in quarterbacks as well.
Yeah, and the thing is, I actually think in this draft that in our rookie drafts that you might be able to get with the second round pick a quarterback that is actually more valuable than Jameis Winston. Now, obviously, that is going to all depend on where they end up landing, where they end up going in drafts, and all that kind of stuff. So I can't guarantee it at this point. And so maybe it's something like you were saying, you have Winston as your fourth or fifth quarterback. Maybe you just hold him for like a value spike. So maybe you hold him until the draft. And then, when you're sitting there at 203 or whatever, you go, hey, here's Jameis Winston. You want him. He's going to be the starter in New Orleans. And then you go get yourself an actual starting quarterback that has the potential to be something. And I mean, I've seen it happen quite a bit over the years where, people think these quarterbacks, aren't going to be anything. They end up going in like the early second, mid second, even in super flex leagues. And then they end up being pretty damn valuable. And so I'd definitely be willing to do that. The last one was Chris Carson. I don't know about you, but I feel like it's kind of the same thing with Drake. Like if he ends back up in back in Seattle, that's probably going to be the best situation for him. I like Carson. I like the way his running style, where he just he's kind of like Gus Edwards. He just runs at the pile and just like hopes for the best. And, it works, but it also leads to injuries and all that kind of stuff. And we've seen that he can't truly stay healthy. So once again, I don't see another team giving him a starting role, or at least a full-time starting role. They might have somebody, it might be a team where they want like the first, second down kind of guy and the goal line kind of back, and maybe he'll have a little bit of value. But there might be somebody that's holding on to hope with Carson, and I might sell. Obviously, that's going to be all price dependent and everything. He might end up being somebody. Maybe he should be a hold. I kind of just lumped him into the sells, but I would, once again, I'm trying to get rid of guys like that, even if I end up kind of taking a discount, so that I'm getting something back rather than him just dying on my roster and getting absolutely nothing.
I think Carson's tough because he runs violent, he gets hurt, but he's still only 26. It's only going to be his fourth year in the league, which I know that can be a time to sell. But I do believe no matter where he goes, he'll have a role, which could be useful as a flex or something of that nature. And I think the market's already corrected on his value, where you're not selling for more than like a late second at best. And I don't know if you even have a buyer at that point with this draft right now. So I'm with you. I think he might more or less be a hold for now. And maybe sell at the value spike if he re-signs with Seattle and then go from there. But I don't see a good enough a return right now to want to sell a 26-year-old running back with a chance at starting again for his team.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't even look at his ADP. So once again, he could be more of a hold than a sell, and that might just be the case. But I feel like if somebody is a little more hyped or whatever, they've always been a fan, they're a Seattle fan, whatever it might be, then I would definitely be trying, like you said, just test the water, like that kind of thing, but feel people out. I would definitely that would be my intention, was at some point this year to get him off of my team, whether it's a thrown in a deal or whatever it is. Not saying you have to sell him this second. And then I have 3 other holds, and basically like one that I actually kind of went into detail, and then just 2 that kind of just threw on there as like I really don't know exactly what to do with them. And the first one was Aaron Jones. I actually thought that I was going to have Jones as a sell. And then I looked at his price, and I really don't mind his price. And I know we talked about Jones, what was it, last week or a couple weeks ago, and we were saying like we don't necessarily, or at least I was saying like I don't necessarily like where he's going in the overall ADP, but I kind of like where he's going in running back ADP. He's going as the running back 15, and I mean he finishes the running back 4 this past year. He finishes the running back 9 the year before. And or no, maybe I have that backwards. I'm sorry. He finishes the running back 9 this year and running back 4 the year before. And I don't expect him to be up that high ever again. Obviously, he's 26 years old. He's most likely going to be going to a new team. Even if he's not going to a new team, I see AJ Dillon, taking a stronger piece of that pie or bigger piece of that pie, and so I don't see him having that running back 9 finish or anything close to that. But at the same time, he's done well enough, obviously, running back 4, running back 9, where a team will probably pay him something. It might not be exactly what he wants to be paid, but maybe because he came from nothing as a 5th round pick and everything, maybe he'll be willing to just take like a decent paycheck. I feel like there's not enough good running backs in the league to where I would be like, I have that many guys ahead of him at the running back 15 price. But at the same time, I don't feel like if he is at that price, I don't feel like you can truly sell him unless somebody just really is holding him to like a higher standard. Then I don't see how you could really sell him and like feel comfortable with what you're getting in return, unless once again it's during the rookie drafts, you're in love with the player and you go, okay, I'm willing to trade for this player now because I know for a fact he's in a good spot. I love him. I want him, that kind of thing. So I feel like at this point you just kind of have to hold, and at the very least wait until rookie drafts, but maybe even hold into the season.
I love it. I think he is old. I don't think you can get what he's worth right now, and I think you could even probably lowball for him right now and get exactly what you should be getting out of him, which is RB15, or even better, depending on how you rank Josh Jacobs. Sorry, I think he should be pretty comparable right now to Josh Jacobs in terms of value, and I've seen trades where Josh Jacobs is way overvalued.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I would assume that Jacobs is valued over Aaron Jones, and that's kind of why I have Jones as a hold. But I mean, maybe he would be a buy depending on if people are just out, especially if you have the big AJ Dillon fans and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot that's going to change with Jones, regardless. We just kind of have to wait and see. But I'd be holding at this point. And then my last 2 players, don't have a lot of analysis on them, is Curtis Samuel and Jonnu Smith. And it's basically just 2 players that I really don't truly know what to do with, because Jonnu had the big blow-ups. Obviously, we know he's an athletic freak. He just giant mountain of a man, and but fast, athletic, all that kind of stuff. We know that he can make it or get the job done when he actually gets the ball. The problem is with the Titans, he doesn't get the ball that much. Now, obviously, if he stays with the Titans, but Corey Davis leaves, he could still have more opportunity. But if he stays with the Titans and Corey Davis stays, then you probably don't want him, or at least you're not going to want him at like a great at his price now, which is tight end 12. So I guess, I would say he could be a sell if somebody is excited about him and the potential of him going somewhere else and his athleticism and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like I would hold because I have seen those spike games. I have seen what he can do when he gets the ball in his hands. And so if he ends up going somewhere where the volume does go up, kind of like we were talking about with Corey Davis earlier, then I could see him scoring 10 touchdowns. I could see him, being maybe not the tight end 1 or anything like that, but maybe the tight end 4, the tight end 6, whatever. And it's the tight end 12 prices. Or, if you probably got him for cheaper. I have a lot of Jonnu from, last year or the year before, and I got him, at tight end 24 prices, So at that point, I'm just kind of making money right now. But I'm just kind of holding on him. And then I don't know how you feel about Samuel, but obviously he kind of came on there at the end. a lot of it was kind of designed runs and like little like screens and quick plays and things. So obviously it's going to take another team to really, give him like those kind of designed plays. But at the price that he's at right now, which I think was like wide receiver 40 or 45 or something like that, I'd definitely be willing to just hold at this point and kind of hope that he ends up somewhere where they would use him like that, and kind of use him in like an exciting manner. And I could be very wrong with his price. I was just kind of guessing on that one. I thought I looked it up earlier. 44. So I wasn't that far off.
No,
That was pretty good.
I'm with you. I had 2 holds as well, just based on the fact they're veterans and you're not going to get out of them what you potentially could get out of them during the season. And that was T.Y. Hilton, which I know not everyone's going to agree with that, but you're not going to get more than maybe a mid-third. And there's the opportunity that he has another healthy 6-game stretch that's actually useful for your roster. And Gronk, just based on the upside week to week, you're not going to get any sort of good value out of him. And Gronk's a guy I'd much rather be holding and selling a guy like Hunter Henry, versus if I were to try to switch that and sell Gronk and hold Henry, I'm getting minimal value with almost no upside. And if I'm a contender, I want to find that cheap upside, and that's a player I'm going to find it in. Even if he retires and I don't sell him for a 3rd-round pick, I'd still rather have – I'm not saying – obviously, if I knew he was retiring, I would sell him. But I would rather have him die on my team knowing he can put up 26 points in the Super Bowl versus a guy that might be able to give me 6. So –
Yeah, and like you said, no one's going to give you anything more than a third, and at that point, it would just be a hold for me. I only have Gronk in the one spot in our happy hour league, but I really have no incentive unless somebody's just really truly overpaying, to sell them. It's just like I just got a trade offer. I'd have to look it up to remember what it was. I just know that it was not good. That's all I remember. It was not good, and I was definitely not accepting. It was an instant decline. But no, I'm definitely holding Gronk, and I agree with that. We apologize for not recording last week. We definitely had we were putting together our ranks, and we have them up on the website now. They're not 100% finalized yet. Obviously, it's going to be going something that's going to be moving and changing throughout the off season as we get new information from pro days and from the draft and all that kind of stuff. But we have our Contender Connection consensus tiers. I guess technically they are in order, but they're technically not rankings. They're tiers, and we have that for the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, the running backs, and the tight ends for the rookie class. Obviously, we haven't really talked on the rookies too much on this pod, but we're going to be getting into that very soon. But go over to contenderconnection.com, check out the ranks, let us know what you think. And like I said, as new information comes in, we'll be changing that weekly, adjusting that, and I hope that you guys can check that out and let us know what you think. But until then, we are cashing out.